Today we're going to be talking about the literary device of irony. And I'm not sure if you know what irony is, but maybe you've heard somebody say, oh, well, that's ironic, or you've said something's ironic. Sometimes we know what that means and sometimes we don't, so we're just going to try to clarify today what it means to be ironic, or what irony is, and also talk about different types of irony that you could either recognize in life or in literature. It's kind of a simple thing, but this definition looks a little complicated. The Virginia SOL definition of irony is the implication through plot or character that the actual situation is quite different from that presented. That's a lot of words. What the heck does that mean? So, the implication that the actual situation is quite different from that presented could basically mean the opposite. What the opposite thing happens of what you would expect is kind of a simple way to put it. If you want to put it in your own words, that's cool. If I have had straight hair my whole life and I perm it to make it curly, but then later in life my hair turns curly and I spend all my time straightening it, that is ironic. It's the opposite of what you would expect. Irony can be kind of funny, unless it's happening to you and then it's not that funny. So, there's 3 types of irony. Before we do anything else, we're going to watch a brief video to clarify those.
He deals with expectations. Irony is the opposite of what is expected. There are 3 kinds of irony: verbal, dramatic, and situational. I will discuss each one of these. Verbal irony. This is when a character or a person says one thing but means the complete opposite. People also know this as being sarcastic or using sarcasm. For example, the locker room smells really good. Or, awesome, another homework packet? Dramatic irony is when the reader understands more about the events of a story than the character, or the character understands the events to be one way, and the reader knows them to be the complete opposite. For example, everyone in school thinks that Tim is the fastest kid, but we know that he cheated in the race. He took a shortcut. So everyone thinks he's fast, but we know he's just an average speed kid, and people challenge him and confront him, and he squirms around with the anxiety of having to lie. But we know, in fact, that he's not actually fast. He cheated in the race. Or perhaps there's a movie where a girl coaches a guy on how to get a girl, and it's a love triangle. So Amanda likes Jake, and Jake likes another girl, so Amanda shows him how to get the girl, but the whole time she likes him, and we know that, but he understands things to be completely opposite in that they're just friends, but there's all sorts of devices that go along with this. So this is common in television shows. You'll see dramatic irony be used to great effect. Situational irony is generally what people are referring to when they just say irony or that something is ironic, and it is when what actually happens or is the complete opposite of what is expected. Something about the situation goes in a way that's the exact opposite of what we expected. For example, let's say we have the survivors of a shipwreck huddled together on a life raft. As a rescue plane flies overhead, they shoot a flare gun to get the attention of the pilot, and they hit the plane, and the plane crashes. So in this case, we expect that the flare gun would bring them to safety when, in fact, it condemns them to death. Another example would be if I'm going to give a person chicken noodle soup because they're sick, I intend that chicken noodle soup makes them feel better, but maybe I improperly prepare the chicken and they get sicker because of salmonella. And in this case, that is also ironic. We expect that the chicken noodle soup would make them feel better when the exact opposite occurs. In review, something that is ironic is unexpected. It's more than unexpected. It's the complete opposite of what we expect. So if a character understands things to be one way, but we know it's the complete opposite, is considered dramatic irony. If everyone's surprised by the outcome of the event, no one expected what occurred, it's the exact opposite of what we did expect, and we call that situational irony. And lastly, if someone's being sarcastic, if they say one thing but they mean the complete opposite, then that is called verbal irony.
Okay, so hopefully you got some examples on your notes. We're going to make sure you know what you're talking about. So, 3 different types of irony: verbal, dramatic, and situational. Verbal is like words. So hopefully you caught it when he said the words mean the opposite of what they should. Sometimes we say things so often sarcastically that they actually have lost their original meaning, but sarcasm is the big one. And sarcasm is when you would use positive words to mean negative things or negative words to mean positive things. Dramatic irony was when a reader, and we're going to assume you're a reader, but if it's TV show watcher, when a reader knows more than the characters who are involved. If you are watching somebody try to open a door that said push, but they were pulling on it and you're just kind of watching it happen and they don't know, that's dramatic irony. And situational irony, which is usually the most funny and it's usually the most common, is when the opposite occurs of what you would expect. Maybe you noticed in his examples, those were kind of dark. Like, you're stranded and then you shoot a plane down and now you all die because there's no plane. Like, that's pretty dark. That's kind of what irony is. It's funny unless it happens to you. So on your paper, I'd like you to have a couple of really good examples of each type of irony. And I know these have a lot of words. Put them in your own words if you like, but here's a couple examples. So maybe you say something like, oh, great. If you're actually displeased about something, that's irony. If someone says, yay, and they're happy, that's not verbal irony. If someone says, yippee skippy, and they're upset, that's irony. Or maybe you call someone a genius, Einstein, when they do something stupid, implying, like, Einstein is smart, you did something stupid, that's the opposite. Verbal irony is pretty common, especially for people your age. Dramatic irony, his example was pretty complicated, but basically a love triangle when you know something that the characters don't know. If you knew somebody was like having an affair, or if you knew somebody was going to break up with someone before the other characters did, that's dramatic irony. It could also be a mystery. It could be some sort of thing where the reader knows who the bad guy is when the police don't. Think about The Telltale Heart, where the guy is just kind of being twitchy and looking around, and we know the whole time that he's actually killed someone. That is dramatic irony. And situational irony is probably the most misused definition. Some people just think everything's ironic, but it's got to be the opposite. So let's say someone is planning a wedding and moves their wedding inside to avoid rain, but then the pipes burst and flood the wedding. That's situational irony. Let's say somebody's taking a shortcut to save time, but there's a wreck, so it actually takes longer than the original path would. That's situational irony. It's not like, ha 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 ha, funny, but it's humorous unless it's happening to you. It'd be like a good story you could tell later. On the bottom of your notes, I'd like you to try to answer these two questions for 3 types of irony. First of all, just kind of give your opinion. Which do you think is most common? Which do you use the most? Which do you hear the most? Which is most common? So you could say number 1, most common, just pick one, tell me why. For number 2, which do you personally think is the funniest? Do you like sarcasm best, or dramatic irony, or situational irony? Which do you think is the most humorous? And tell me why. These are your options. A lot of times people actually are saying something is ironic, but it's not. It's just annoying, or it's just interesting. So interesting is not ironic. The opposite of what you would expect is ironic. So once you've answered those questions, take a second and actually go to this video, please. And on the bottom of your paper, write one misconception about irony that they mention in the video. Like one, oh, well, that's not really true. This is the real thing. So tinyurl.com/YBPGF6AG. Watch that and jot it down. After this, we're going to do a little maze to see if you can identify pictures of irony, and then we'll practice with some excerpts. So have some fun. Irony is kind of cool.